Williams class. For your English lesson today, the learning objective is, can I box up ideas for my final set of instructions? Now today, you will be boxing up ideas of how to take over the school. Now remember, in our box up, the following is expected. We have to have a section for our introductory paragraph, what I will need, steps, bossy verbs, and also an important note. I'm going to give you an example of what I would do if I was to box up my ideas on how to take over the school, just to help you understand what is expected of you from this box up when you do it later on today. So what do I need in my introductory paragraph? I need to make sure that I have certain features that I have seen in the introductory paragraph for building an empire that I would like to include in my own set of instructions. So think about what features you have seen in your empire text map and just write some of those features here below. So I can think of some features already. I know that there are rhetorical questions in that text map, so I'm just going to write rhetorical questions. So I know I want to include that in my set of instructions. I think I would really like to also have short, snappy sentences to really make sure that the reader of the instructions is not getting bored by reading long-winded sentences. Keeping it short, keeping it snappy, just like that. So there are a couple of ideas about what I would include in my introductory paragraph. I won't write more than that because I do want you to think of some by yourself as well when you're doing the box up. The second section is what I will need. So one example of what I would need if I was to escape or take over the school rather, would be the keys to the school. Because once you have the keys to the school, boys and girls, you are literally unstoppable. So the keys to the school. That is one example of one thing I would need in order to take over the school. Now the steps. How to take over the school, what steps would be required? I would definitely make sure I'd write number 1, because this would be my first step, get to school, because you can't take over the school if you don't know how to get there. So find out, I would say, find out how to get to school. Now this is a box up, so notes is allowed, of course. Notes are allowed, rather. Short sentences are fine, but remember, we are writing sentences still, so ending your sentence with a full stop. So that's the first step that I would have on taking over the school. I'd have to figure out a way of getting there first and foremost. Any bossy verbs that I would like to use in my instructional writing? There are so many. Let me think of maybe 2 to get you started. Bossy verbs would be maybe locate. I think locate is a good one. That's a bossy verb. Now remember, a bossy verb is an imperative verb, just to remind you. I would say locate would be one that I would include in my box up or in my set of instructions eventually. Another imperative verb, bossy verb, I would include. Oh, I know. Distract. That's another one that I would have. So have you noticed then that I've not written my bossy verbs with a capital letter or ended them with a full stop. I've just written the bossy verbs as you can see here. So you can do the exact same when you are doing your box up. You don't need to worry about capital letters and full stops. You can just write the words that come to mind, the bossy verbs that you would like to include. And lastly, important notes. What's one thing that I want to make sure I include as an important note? Oh, I know. I would write make sure nobody catches you. And then to be a little bit different, exclamation mark, because make sure nobody catches you. That's how I want it to sound if someone was to read it. So that is a short example of what I would do if I was to box up my ideas on how to take over the school. Now think back to our original text map about building an empire. Maybe you want to think about what the Romans did to build their empire. And what would you need to do to take control of the school? So let's have a read through of the text map just to remind us of how the Romans built their empire, what they did to do that, and what they needed to take control of the empire. And maybe it can inspire you to think about how you would go about taking control of the school. How to build an empire. Are you interested in building your own empire? Do you lie in your bed dreaming of ruling over a kingdom? Do you see yourself conquering tribes and building a colosseum? If so, the likelihood is that you are destined to be a powerful ruler. Do not despair. Help is at hand. Building an empire is not as hard as you think. Read these step-by-step instructions and soon you too could be the ruler of a powerful empire. What you will need: an army, land, weapons, shields, good walking shoes. What you have to do. Number 1, first, you should carefully train your army in the art of warfare. Number 2, secondly, you must bravely lead an army across the sea to a new land. Number 3, after that, fiercely invade the lands, plundering and murdering those in your way. Number 4, now you must make sure that you defeat anyone that tries to stand in your way. And number 5, rule over your kingdom proudly. Important note, please remember, in order for your empire to run smoothly, it needs a strong leader. A common issue that these leaders face is the threat of unexpected death. Try your best to avoid this and rule fairly over your people. Otherwise, you may be assassinated. First thing to think about as well is what part of the school would you need to conquer? So are you thinking about taking over from the front of the school, or maybe the back, or maybe there's a side entrance? Really have a think about what part of the school you would need to conquer. What would you do with your teachers? You have Mr. Langford, Miss Shah, Mrs. Van Huffel, and myself, Miss Gulzar. What would you do with us? Have a little think about that as well, because when you come into school, you are with us the whole time. So we would be an important person to think about, I think. Next, think about what you will need to take over the schools. There are some pictures here to help you think about the tools that you might need, the equipment, or maybe even just some routine elements that you might need to consider. Now, a short little tutorial on how to write instructions. Number 1, remember to write in the present tense, not the past tense or the future tense. You have to stick to the present tense. Number 2, use imperative verbs and adverbs to begin each step. So imperative verbs tell us what to do and adverbs tell us how to do it. Do we do it carefully, quietly, loudly? Those two verbs are very, very important. Imperative verbs and adverbs. 3, use topic words. So make sure that you are using vocabulary that is relevant to your instructions. So rather than saying, put together the sugar and the butter, you can say combine the butter and sugar, mix the butter and sugar together. Make sure that you're using appropriate vocabulary. Number 4, use time conjunctions. So telling the reader of the instructions, do you want them to do it first, next, after the previous step, lastly, finally, once that is done, later on? Make sure you use time conjunctions. If you didn't use them, the reader of the instructions would not know when to follow your set of instructions. So be very, very careful there. And then lastly, number 5, use clear descriptions. So make sure that you are being as detailed as possible in your instructions, but also make sure that you're being really obvious. So you have to imagine that the person who is following your instructions does not have a clue about how to follow what you are telling them to do. So you have to be as clear as possible. Tell them where to go, tell them how to go there, tell them when they should go there. Be very, very specific. Pretend they've got their eyes closed and you're literally guiding somebody who can't even see and who doesn't know where they are. Maybe the place is new to them. You really have to just pretend that they don't know anything apart from what you are telling them. Your 3 tasks for today are as follows. Number 1, you're going to box up your ideas for your instructions. Number 2, you are going to read through your ideas and make sure that you have included technical vocabulary. And number 3, you're going to draw an illustration that you can include in your final hot task. Now remember, an illustration has labels, so labeling different parts of your drawing and telling us why you have included it. I look forward to seeing all of your work onto Tapestry, boys and girls. Make sure that you are staying safe, and I will see you very, very soon.